All right, guys. So probably gonna just go over like random stuff. Honestly, like whatever questions y'all got, go ahead and put them in the questions. But one of the first thing I'm gonna show here is I just whooped up these slides really quickly. But I can probably just delete that too. How do I trade a candle two? Because I do trade candle twos, but there's a specific scenarios where I take a positional entry or a candle two, right, which is not in my course because it requires a little bit more experience to take, and it's very specific. I'm gonna make more detailed slides, so this is just like a small introduction, all right? So the first way I trade a candle two is with a driver. So what we know about drivers is they should be expanding away from the low of the day, right? Um, so if you see, or maybe you know, away from a key level. So remember this stream that we went over um, a couple of days ago, or not days ago, a couple of weeks ago, where we talked about if the driver expands into a key level, right? Then I want it to reverse price. So it would look something like this. So this is an example of me how I would trade a candle two. As long as it has a small wick and you get that chain of state delivery, and price is reversing from this key level, right, as it should because the low of day is already put in, then you can still trade it, right, as long as that's a small wick and the price is expanding away from that key level. Another scenario is maybe before the driver, price retraces, right? Then um, I want the driver to expand away from that retracement, right? So that's what this would look like. Prior to the driver, if we retrace prior to it, there's no reason to go lower because we're already retraced, right? There's no reason to consolidate. There's only expansion. After retracement, you expand, right? If price is already in a key level, then I would trade this next candle right here, essentially, if it has that small wick. Because with the volatility, it can expand and reverse in the same candle, right? So I would trade this, and if it was an actual driver, it'd probably be a lot larger, but you get my point, right? So it's literally just that, as long as it has that small wick. Now, I do not trade a reversal. I barely trade it. If it's creating the low of day, that's a bit too risky for me. Where like this is the low day, for example, and we're in the protraction phase of the daily candle, right? So price is like opening low into a relevant level to form a low day potentially, and the driver reverses from it. I will not trade this candle too. I'd rather just wait for the candle close because it's a little bit more risky if you're trying to long a C2 at the low of day. But when you're in continuation, it's a lot better, a lot more high probability. So that's how I trade it. And it'll be as simple as either candle 2 prior to the driver will hit a key level, or C2 will hit a key level, right? Either or, you have to hit a key level because if you don't hit a key level, then how can you anticipate a reversal from what? There needs to be a key level, right? And ideally, there's an SMT here. That's always great as well. There's an SMT here. Um, that's great with candle 1 and candle 2, by the way. What's another one? A positional entry is very simple. It's also a continuation where the previous candle reversed, right? And all you do is mark out EQ just like we regularly do. And there needs to be a very well-defined invalidation point inside of the previous candle's range, right? Like a bulky opposing candle, right? And then you simply put your limit order there, and you're assuming that candle three's low will be formed there, right? So it's a bit riskier, but I do this all the time. You guys see me do it all the time. When you have the right narrative, it's very important that both of these instances you have a drawn liquidity still available, so price can expand into it, right? So the best case scenario to do this positional entry in is if we just manipulated, because if you just manipulate, then price should just expand, right? So this is when I expect price to just expand, right? Very quickly. So a lot of times, if it's just going to expand really quickly, we might not even form that intracandle chain state delivery. So this is when you can actually expect it, especially around these really volatile times. This is when I'll take a positional entry. Does that kind of make sense, everyone? But again, this is very vague and very short. I'm going to create a whole slideshow on it, and that'll be like a whole another stream. That's just how I trade it. I'll go over a quick example. I traded this day on NQ. Here's a little bit of the strength switching stuff. So strength switching just confirms the SMT. That's literally it. So if you look here, this asset was clearly the strongest one out of the triad because it wicked the low. You see that? Where YM was the weakest. But you're seeing that, this driver, 830 driver, is expanding away. So you're going to see that we hit this low on NQ, like right before the driver. So around 8:30, we hit this low around 8 o'clock. We see how it didn't reverse. So this is in my slides. I'm telling you, the way drivers react to framework is one of the most consistent things. This is literally why I have this slide. If we manipulate prior to the driver, we don't reverse, then I want the driver to reverse. You see this? This is exactly how it looks right here. So if you see prior to 8:30, we hit this low, so the driver should expand away. If it doesn't expand away, that's an invalidation for this to be a manipulation. So we see the driver expand away. This validates this as a true reversal. So again, after a true reversal, the gaps in order blocks that form away from it should support price higher to the draw liquidity. So this relevant high, where you could potentially mark out this premium fair value gap in the range, because this is a lower time frame swing point as well. If I go on like the 5-minute probably, right? Whatever. So like this gap is pretty significant, right? And you're gonna see here like this is still a fractal model. It's just a candle 2, candle 3. But on a 30-minute, I just want to show you that it's just a candle 2, right? And the way I would trade it is on the lower time frame. As you see, 9:30 is opening low into it, and this is where you see a form of strength switching, which just validates this as a reversal. So you see that NQ was previously a stronger asset, but we were tracing to EQ of this range, where YM is not. Right, that's a form of strength switching, where this confirms that all the assets will get to this high, right? And that's why you see over here. Am I good over here? Oh, never mind, that was something else. And as you see, you can just trade it. Like you can take the first CSD or the second CSD, just like the fractal model. I typically just take the first one. I took this an NQ though, whoops. But this day I took this one, by the way. I just took this. You guys saw me take this trade. It was like around 2 hour, whatever. And this was my trade, just trading the 30-minute C2. But importantly, it's like I can trade the C2 or even the fractal model here, like right, just using the drivers. Like you see 8:30 expand away from this low and 9:30. That's what it should do. You know what I'm saying? That's what confirms narrative for us. So that's how I would trade that's how I trade C2s, right? What's another day it took? I can just remember some that are really like long ago. I don't know why I just remember these. Like this one is a decent one. I took back-to-back days this day. They're both C2. So if you look here, like this day for example, again has to be formed from a key level, right? And as you see, there is a SMT at the low of the day here, right? If I look at ES, we take this low out, right? And so once you form a true reversal, like an SMT and price expands away, this confirms the SMT. Once a true reversal is put in, price has to expand somewhere, like in the form of highs and lows, like relevant highs and lows. So here's the previous day's high, very clean, where the daily is also opening low first. Literally textbook. If you want to just put this in your journal, this is textbook. So this is how I would trade it, right? I don't need to wait for a swing point. As you see, there's no swing point here. But if you look on the 30-minute, candle 1 hit this gap here. So prior to the driver, it already retraced and hit this hourly fair value gap or 30-minute fair value gap, right? So if we go back to our little thing, if it prior to the driver, if we already retraced, then we should just expand. You know what I'm saying? You see how consistent this is, right? Because the low of days already put in. We want these gaps to hold. This goes back to my invalidation stream over here. Where is it, brother? Yes, so it's over here. When price actually creates the low of day and actually expands away, first thing we're going to get is a CSD. Remember, we referenced, the time frame for the CSD is just, it all depends on when the low of day is formed. So if it's London or Asia low of day, we're going to be referring to an hourly or 30-minute CSD. Right, boom there. We have that hourly or 30-minute CSD, right? And then when price expands away from the CSD, what's it going to create? It's going to create new invalidation points. So like order blocks, right, or fair value gaps. This is the first CSD right here. So this is what we get this scenario. We're creating fair value gaps. So we want this fair value gap to hold, right? So if we already retrace into it prior to driver, We also want the driver to expand away from the low of day. So here's our first draw on liquidity, but most importantly, it's this high here, right? And if I drop to 3 minute, you get this 830 wicks out this previous candle's low. And this is my trade here. Just off the first CSD, because if the driver is expanding away from this, right, this just validates this phase of price of expansion, retracement expansion. Drivers expand away from low day, reversing from here. So it's very high probability, right? And this is my trade here. But I don't know if you guys remember, you probably guys don't remember this day, but I took one partial and I was holding to here and it came back to me. So this is a little bit where strength switching comes in. And you're going to see the same thing here, by the way. But I didn't trade NQ, but it's the same logic. So look how NQ took out this previous high. If I go to YM, because at this point I'm like, okay, it doesn't make sense to reverse from here, leaving these equal highs. I'm like, why is it making this super deep retracement? Well, if I go to YM, look at this very shallow retracement. We haven't even yet taken out the previous high. So the best way to trade lagging assets is when all assets reverse. So here, if I go to the 1 hour, this is that same SMT. It was just weaker right before, but it's still expanding away. You see that? It's just slower. It's just lagging. So when NQ takes this high out, this is the best case scenario to trade. This is what you saw me trade on YM on Wednesday, I think, something like that. It's basically the same case scenario, where over here as well, 830 is also expanding away. So these are still bullish signatures. It's just slower, right? But then once NQ hits the high, this is the trigger for YM to catch up, right? This is what we see, right? Where you see this little consolidation, this shallow retracement here. If I go to NQ to much deeper, that's the strength switch. We also see an SMT here, lower low. We're seeing a higher low. So I actually took this before 930 even happened, because if this is retracement, right, into this 30-minute opposing candle, for example, or this retracement into this 15-minute gap, right, or this is opposing candle, if it already retraced and then we have an SMT, what is that the confirmation of? That's the protected low to trade away from this gap, right? So this is just expansion retracement, and now you have an SMT, which is the trigger for what? Expansion. So I know the low is already put in prior to the driver. So if we've already put in a reversal prior to the driver, what should the driver do? It should just expand away, right? This is the same consistent logic that you see every single week. And this is what 930 did, it just expanded. So I just traded this. So I took a partial win here where it came all the way back to my entry, because I'm not about to take a loss here when it was up 2.7R. Like, there's no way to trail my stop loss, but when it leaves my entry, this is where I go break even, because there's really no reason to turn back here. The only reason why I did is because of that strength switch, right? So this is where I just take this trade over here, and I got a very nice win on this asset into this high here, right? But that was some of the logic there. But if I go to the 30-minute over here, it's the same thing. Or what did the previous candle do? It retraced, right, into this opposing candle. So if it already retraced into opposing candle, which is the 9 o'clock candle, what should 930 do? It should expand away, right? We've already had that SMT like we mentioned. So it should just reverse, right? So if you want to trade this candle too, go to the 3-minute. There's really not much opportunity because it just expands like this. So sometimes that happens. You just won't get opportunity. Price is too volatile here. But I took this over here, which really can just be chalked up as technically a fractal model, because this is a candle 2. This is candle 3, right? But you know why it worked. It's because of the strength switching, right? Which is what I traded there. But hopefully that makes sense as far as how to trade a candle 2. I even traded this one over here. I think AM also took this trade. We go to the previous day. There's an SMT here where NQ does not take this low out. I know some of you guys wanted me to split my screen, so I'll try to do that, even though I hate doing it. Hold on, I gotta bar replay to find it. All right. So here's that SMT, right? All right. So you see how this day didn't reverse that's irrelevant. Like a candle 2 closure, a lot of people think that you need a candle 2 closure to anticipate reversal. Wrong. The only reason why it's not reversing here is because this SMT is created super late in the day, right? So it doesn't have enough time to go and create a candle 2. So when it does this, and when it reverses late in the day, and we're not going to sweep out the previous day's low, for example, then this is where you're going to create a low of day very early on in the day generally. Like you can already anticipate an Asia or London low of day. And that's what we get. It makes sense because if it's going to open here, right, the day's going to open here but not take out the previous day's low, then it has to be created early on in the day, which is what happens. You kind of just expand away. Now if I, no, whoops, not here, sorry. So prior to 9:30, what do I see? I remember this is a little sus for me because if I go to like the lower time frame, it was very just kind of lackluster on even on the 15-minute, where like we have a bunch of stack lows. Like there's nothing to really trade away from prior to 9:30, right? So I'm like, okay, I want to create something relevant because the low of day at this point is really just 1800 right here, and then we have this relevant swing above the daily open, and this is where YM trades into this low to create an SMT. This is perfect, right? So if I play price forward and we wait for 9:30, whoops, we see that 9:30 goes and trades into this low, which creates that divergence here. So now I can assume that, I can trade away from, I can trade 9:30 away because of that SMT, right? So I'm pairing 9:30 with the driver, I'm pairing a reversal with the driver, which is 9:30. And this is what I took. I think AM took this as well. I took this exactly here. It was more of the same thing where it did come back though, because I was looking for this high and even potentially all of these highs here. So around 2R, I took a partial, right? And then I think my TP was, like I said, it was very extended. It was way up here, bro. But yeah, it was up like 4R-ish. Like you got to take a partial around there, right? And then I'm also obviously break even because I don't want price to come back here. Right, and this is where we see a form of strength switching, right? Because here we have one stage SMT and then two stage SMT. Where 10 o'clock news, so if I play this little news thing, we see 10 o'clock, we're pairing a driver, manipulation with a driver again. And this is where I trade ES. I remember this. If I pull up ES, so y'all see this two-stage divergence here. So 10 a.m. is opening low first, that 10 a.m. candle, and we're pairing it with a manipulation. So if I go to 30-minute here, or one of these time frames, we see that we have that candle 2, which is that divergence, remember. If I go on ES though, if I just play price here, if I remember, it's this right here, I took this exactly. Because there's a divergence here as well, right? So this is a protected level on ES. And we just create this opposing candle before NQ. You see that? NQ, we did not close above, so I assume that it's obviously the stronger asset. So this is what I took here. And if I go to the 30-minute time frame, it's just the fractal model, right? We have this candle putting in a reversal, which is an SMT, and then we're trading that expansion because at this point we left these equal highs. I remember this. So it's like it doesn't make sense to reverse. We left this on all the assets, so it makes absolutely no sense to reverse. It makes more sense that this is just a retracement, if anything, right? So that's what I took there. And this ended up being a very, very, very good trade. Went very far. But yeah, that was my trade there. 2 trades there, just like the previous day. But you see the stuff I'm using, right? SMT and all that. But if I go to this previous day here as well, I took this as well. This is a positional entry. It's more of a driver positional entry. But it's more of the same thing, where I'm going to go to a different contract so it's a bit more clear here. So, and then we'll get to some questions, but if we go to the previous day's close, we can start to anticipate some things. Look at this close. It's very weak, right? We close below this candle's low. If I go to ES, it's a bit more stronger where we fail to close below this low. And in Q, we're printing a damn near like full reversal candle, indecision candle. So we can measure strength. You know, the NQ is the strongest, YM is the weakest. So we have a gap here, right? So which asset can we anticipate to trade into the gap? It's NQ in ES over YM, right? So if one of these assets trade into the gap, then can you expect to print here? An SMT, right? Or sorry, an SMT with YM. Right? So you can already come into the day anticipating this, and you want this to happen because if there's an SMT in the gap, then that means we're going to just do this, like internal to external, right? Because if we have an SMT there, that confirms this as a key level, right? And that's what we see here, where this asset trades in the gap, where this one also trades in the gap, but you can just see the strength, right? Where, look at the body, it's a bit larger than ES over here, right? And then YM is creating that SMT, and it's much more, it's the highest probable one to actually trade into this low. Does that make sense? Because it's weaker. So if I drop lower, we'll also talk about how to trade a 4-hour reversal candle, because you guys see me do it, but you guys only see me do it when generally around a driver, right? Because there's a volatility. There's enough volatility to have this large wick and also expand. So let's go over to the news calendar here. So prior to 8:30 news, which is CPI, have we formed a higher or low of the day prior to CPI? No. Right. So if I go to my little driver thing, you guys see how important drivers are and how they literally play into everything. If there is, hold on, reversal is not put in. Oh yeah, if a reversal is not put in prior to a driver, right? So if we go over here, we don't have a reversal, right? We're just consolidating between this high and this low. Then I want the driver to go print the reversal. All right, so let's play this 30-minute candle. Okay, boom. We trade into a high and then print an SMT. This is a potential reversal, right? So this is a two-stage driver though. So if 8:30 manipulates, then what should 9:30 do? It should expand, because prior to this 9:30 driver, what did we do? A reversal is put in prior to driver. So what should do? It should continue, right? So this is what we can already anticipate, right? If I play the next candle, which is 9 o'clock, we even have this 30-minute CST, which is not totally necessary, but it is the fractal model, right? You have a candle 1, candle 2, candle 3. Or if I go to the 1 hour, you can just see this. It's still a reversal candle. I don't care that it didn't mechanically close here. That doesn't actually matter. If I go to the 5-minute, you're going to see that we have everything that we need. You have the initial CST, and then you have the propulsion block. So if price has not expanded yet away from the initial reversal, I don't know if you guys remember my stream about this, then what can you expect the driver to do? You can have a one-sided expansion, right? Which is over here. If I pull up this. All right, so yeah, here it is. So if you manipulate prior to driver, but you haven't yet expanded away from it, in the daily wick, you're still in the daily wick. We haven't yet created the daily body of the candle. This is when you're going to get a one-sided expansion, right? This happens all the time, okay? This is exactly what we see here. We haven't yet expanded away from here, right? And hit all these low resistance lows. If you look at the way the daily candle formed, very large opposing run, that's fine. That's still tradable. We just know that price is not going to expand much, past this daily open. The previous low is like the max target, right? Because of that larger wick size. But the way we trade reversal candles, it's still opening high first, so it's still valid. But yeah, you can assume, since we're opening near a relevant level, this is a positional entry. It's just drivers. It's the same thing though. 9:30 is opening up within a clear set of opposing candles, right? This is where I can assume that 9:30 will not wick this high out because it's a larger range. This is what I traded this day as well, right? Into this low basically. And I took full TP there because if I look over here, there's no form of strength switching on these highs. So what does that tell you? That this SMT here is likely to cap the daily range, right? Because if the other asset's not going to expand here, then there's no reason to keep going lower, right? This is another way you can tell if you should be holding a trade, etc. Strength switching. You can do a lot with strength switching, but is it necessary? Not totally, but it's a little advanced. But yeah, we'll probably wrap it up there. But if I if I just look at y'all's questions, I'll go over some stuff that y'all guys type. So One question I have is about phase of price for framework for bias. Understand the concept about phase of price. The doubt is once price reaches an objective, say swing high, do we wait for a continuous signature or reversal signature in daily itself or 1 hour? Oh, so because if we wait for a signature in daily, it would take. Yeah, yeah. So when you reach an objective on the daily or something, if it's going to be a reversal, then you're going to see the reversal on the hourly and 4 hour, because if price reaches into a low, for example, like this, and actually reverses, it's just going to do it in a couple candles, and we can view those reverse signatures like within these candles, right? But if it's going to be a consolidation, you're also going to see it on the the 4 hour and the hourly, of course, but it's just going to hang around for a couple of days, right? If it's going to be a daily consolidation. So if you don't see this reverse signature on the 1 hour and 4 hour, that means that we're probably going to like have a consolidation on the daily time frame, if that makes sense, right? Because if it doesn't reverse in a couple of candles, then what are we going to do? Right, consolidate. But you do this intraday as well. So if I go to YM or something, every time we reach a relevant level, right, just a bar you played over here, what phase of price do we get? So this is a relevant level, relevant low. There's the space between these lows, right? What do we get over here? Is a seek and destroy, which is a continuation signature, right? Where you can't displace to the low, can't displace to the high, right? That's a form of consolidation. Is like a broadening formation, or seek and destroy, right? And that's why we continue, right? Clearly a failure to manipulate. That's why you guys saw me trade NQ long here, and I put that lesson out onto coupled assets, because it can be very confusing where people are going to try to long this, but like I said, it gets very nuanced. But if you look here, this is a relevant low, and what do we get? Initially we get consolidation, right? So clearly that's not a reversal signature, right? And then we manipulate this low. This is what a lot of us traded here. We're NQ manipulates low, but the drivers are expanding away from this. So you would be more long biased this day. So this can be viewed as an A and B reversal. But when price fails to like really displace these highs, that's just a seek and destroy. But you wouldn't know that, right? You wouldn't know at this point that it's going to be seek and destroy, right? Until we fail to displace over these highs. Then it's just seek and destroy, where you can't displace through this low or whatever, and now we're just failing to displace through these highs as well. This, when you know, it's likely to just be a continuous signature, right? I can refer to another example here. Even on Friday, it's the same thing, but like there's no fair value gaps you see here. This is not a expansion signature where we're making these super deep retracements. You see this? That's not a reversal signature. And you see price comes very deep back in this range, right? So this is viewed as expansion with expansion. Probably a fair value gap on the 4 hour here or something. Yeah, the fair value gap on the 4 hour, right? And here you see that expansion with expansion, CSD here, right? If I go to the 30-minute, you're going to see some form of consolidation, right? And then we continue, right? So you can even see the phase of price here, right? Where it was that expansion with expansion, consolidation, and then continuation to this low, right? Or we manipulate on this asset, but not over here, I don't think. Yeah, we create an SMT here, right? But it's just like an overall like larger consolidation, really, is what it is. But yeah, this is not obviously a reversal signature, right? Price doesn't do this. Like, look at this here. Like, look at these super deep retracements where we can't displace over this high, can't displace over this high. Very lackluster here. Deep ass pullback and then consolidation. It's just a giant seek and destroy, really phase of price, really, right there. What was I gonna say? Like this week as well. If you even look over here, I believe on like NQ or whatnot, or even YM. This is a good example of YM. This is also just a continuation signature, right? So we had that previous week SMT. That's why along this day, there's a form of strength switching down here. When you have a true reversal, like a previous week low SMT, and then price expands away from it, that's how you validate the SMT. But if we want to continue to like these highs, for example, which all assets trade into this gap, right? You see that? Then they should support price to get to this drawn liquidity rate after a true reversal. These are the fair value gaps and order blocks we actually truly care about. We're creating SMT at the lows here, etc. But these are the ones that we should really care about. You see how we took out this high and then took out this low? Again, that's a seek and destroy profile where we continue higher, right? And it's just an SMT at this low, by the way. And that's why I traded, I actually traded this asset here, by the way, because of the SMT. But I traded the lagging asset here. If you go on this Thursday, you see this expansion, myth expansion here? This is a reversal signature, right? In that SMT, right? But why am I longing this day? Well, if you look here, we took out this relevant low. There's nothing beyond this low, right? In close proximity. If you look at the weekly candle here, it's not going to create a new wick. You see this large wick here, very large opposing run from the open. So it's not likely to flip and go all the way down here. So it makes sense to just to close somewhere above the daily open. So if this is the only relevant level above the weekly open, perfect level to create the low of the week, to be honest, right? So when I see an SMT here, right, which is a two-stage SMT, it just makes sense to cap the weekly range off here, right? But if I go over here, it's like, this is how you know it's going to be seek and destroy. For one, right, we manipulate here, but when you can't displace to these highs, which these are relevant highs, there's nothing beyond this high in close proximity. This is when you're likely going to get a new phase of price, when there's literally nothing beyond this. It's just like right here. Do you see the space between this low and this low? Like when you reach this level, this is when you're going to get like higher time frame continuous signatures. So like on the same time frame. So if you're going to get a continuous signature on, like, let's say the daily or something, and let's say this is from this is the daily chart, right? This is the daily swing low, and there's nothing in close proximity to this here. This is when you're likely to get a daily like retracement or consolidation rather than just fucking ripping right through it. If it's obviously going to be a reversal, you can see that reversal signature very quickly. This is where you can view it on the hourly and 4 hour and whatnot. But here's why you get it on the hourly. It's the same time frame as this low because nothing in close proximity to this. It's not going to get down here. Same thing over here. Like you form an SMT here as well, right? And we can't displace through it. So again, you can't displace to the low, can't displace to the high. Just seek and destroy, right? After an expansion as well. So it makes sense, right? So when you're trading in these conditions, it's very possible to trade. But you have to take these really short-term trades. So literally my trade is from here to here. That's it. Very small trade. And my trade here, I already showed you the logic behind. There's a strength switch here, two-stage, where 930 is manipulating. It's literally just from here to here. So you guys see me trade every day, but I'm just taking these small moves. It's nothing crazy. Like this day, I'm just trading from here to here. You guys see these small moves? Like this is what I really try to trade. But I trade every day, so I have to use extra confirmation. Like I have to use drivers. So driver is manipulating. You see the consistency here, right? With drivers, it's very consistent. And then I'm using SMTs. There's SMT here. There's a form of SMT here. So like you have to have that. If you want to trade every single day, you need more confirmation. Because try to trade every day and without some level of filtering, you're cooked. I promise you. And that's why a lot of people are struggling because they don't have this level. They don't require filtering. They want to trade every day. It's gonna be hard, bro. Like it's gonna be hard. Even people that don't have SMT and stuff, they still know exactly what they're looking for. So if you don't know exactly what you're looking for and trying to trade every day and you don't have this level of filtering, it's gonna be very hard. You're gonna be struggling. I promise you that. Because I used to do the same thing. Driver is referring to a volatility injection. So like on indices specifically, like 930. That's the equities open. For anything else, it's just red folder USD news. That's it. But it doesn't make sense, Axe. But you got to use phase of price on everything. Every time you hit a relevant level, this is where we're going to see a phase of price delivery. If it's going to be reversal, you're going to see it on the lower time frame. If it's going to be a continuation, you're likely, okay, here, hold on. There's a very specific when you're going to see continuation. The only way you're going to see continuation on the lower time frame, like I said, this is when you're only going to trade it as well, though, is when you have like something like this. All right, so say you get a reversal here, and you want to continue through this high. You want to see continuation here. This is when you're likely to get a lower time frame continuation signature because there's something to draw into, right? Beyond it, beyond this level, right? This is when you're likely to get that lower time frame phase of price. But if there is nothing beyond here, for example, like it's going to be very hard for price to continue. So what I mean by that is if this is the next relevant high and you're trying to look for a signature here, like a lower time frames, it's not going to happen, bro. Like it's probably not going to happen. This is when you get like an hourly phase of price, right? Because again, it's going to have a very hard time just displace this high when it's not even going to get here in the same day. This is really hard to anticipate, this kind of stuff. So you guys see me talk about all the time how I like to trade to hourly and 4-hour levels, right? Like relevant levels. And I don't like to enter beyond this here, only unless there's a close in proximity like objective. But this has to do with entries, which I'm going to make slides about. So like I said, there's going to be a lot of stuff that we can go over for entries and stuff like that, but sort of new here. Okay, I already went over that. How can you define a relevant swing? So I would go to AM's course, but I'll just go over it really quickly. Relevant swing are just spaced out. So how to map out relevant swings? They're just spaced out highs and lows. So you see the space between these lows? Do you see how these are very close proximity lows? I would never frame a reversal from here because it's a feather swing, right? If I try to frame a reversal here, what are we still leaving behind? This feather swing, right? So you want to be trading away from protected swings. So protected swings are just when price manipulates a relevant swing. Because if price manipulates this relevant swing, you see how there's nothing in close proximity to this low? There's no reason to return back to here if it's a manipulation, right? Whereas if you trade away from a feather swing, there is a reason to return back here because this is still a feather swing. You manipulate a feather swing, but then you create one again. You know what I'm saying? So this is what a protected swing is. It's just a manipulation of a relevant swing. And this is where you want to be TPing. You want to be TPing at relevant swings because this is where you're going to get a new phase of price likely, right? So it's not only what you want to trade away from, but it's also what you want to target. This is what we do not do. We do not trade away from feather swings, even if it is a manipulation. Unless there's an SMT here, of course, because there is a reason to return back this level because it's still a feather swing, right? So you want all the lows to be, all the relevant lows to be manipulated, right, in that general area. So there's no reason to return. That's what that is. And after a true reversal, so I see a lot of people trading away from any and every fair value gap. You want to be trading away from fair value gaps after a true reversal. So what I mean by that is when price creates a protected swing or maybe a two-stage SMT, the gaps and order blocks that are printed immediately following that true reversal, right, should hold because after you manipulate, after you have a true reversal, then price should expand away from that, right? So in expansion is when we actually expect order blocks and fair value gaps to hold. So these are the fair value gaps and order blocks that we care about actually. It's not just any and every one. It's the one in expansion. And how do you anticipate expansion after a reversal, like a true reversal or a manipulation towards our drawn liquidity, right? And then once we reach a drawn liquidity, it all starts again, right? This is where you get a new phase of price. But holy essay. Yeah, this is my face reveal. Our established low today. How do simply TTs protected highs and lows? So TTs protected highs and lows. I don't know what that is, but a lot of times it'll be in the form of a protected low or high on the 1 hour, 4 hour time frame. This is why I have this here. My ideal GXT profile is just a low of day created from a protected swing, right? Because that creates the wick. So if the daily opens low and then manipulates, creating the wick, then you can assume that the low of day is put in and we should expand away, which would then create the body, right? So the manipulation creates the wick, the expansion away from the wick creates the body of it. If you have a small wick, then you can expect expansion, right? This week has been a really tricky week. Can you go through the price action from Tuesday and how you could have been positioned in the market? Yeah, after I get to some questions, we can definitely do that because we only have like 15 minutes. I didn't get into that many questions. Is there a reason for YM you let the trade go all the way to the high? That's super fast away. Wait, what? Is there a reason for on the YM you let the trade go all the way to that high? That's super far away. I think it was that Monday trade. The best way I know to trade can. Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about. So this daily chart. Was it this trade? Here? Monday. Yeah, it's this one. Yeah, if you look here, the way you can actually anticipate a large run in price is the small wick, right? If it opens low and creates a very large wick, then this is where you cannot anticipate price to expand past the daily open, right? But if it has a large or a small wick, the price can actually expand very far, you know. And this is following a reversal. So it's like we have this SMT here, and here's the target, right? It's this Wednesday high here. So you can TP when these assets hit this high. And yeah, so you can see that, you know, Thursday reversed, Friday started to expand, and Monday will just finish the job off, right? This is where we see this day open low. Here's the daily open, right? Opens low, creates that SMT manipulation. So GXD ideal profile, 2 a.m. reversal, 6 a.m. expansion. That's why I can trade this candle as well, because the 4 hour is aligned. That's why you guys saw me trade the candle 2 in here, right? Because the drivers should expand away, etc. But yeah, you can expect expansion past the daily open when there's a small wick. Real strength-based switching among correlated assets involves rotating into the relatively weaker lagging instrument. I don't even know what. I don't know if you actually asked these a serious question or not, BM. I'm not gonna lie, bro. Could you go over ES from the 28th 5 a.m. please? Got stopped out. I think I remember this. So what day? 28th ES 5 a.m. 28th 5 a.m. I think some people took this. I was actually awake this day. 5 a.m. So you took this, I guess. Like one of the, like, hold on. Hourly? No, you definitely took this. I assume you took this, right? Three minutes. Yeah, 4 hour looks, or this looks fine, but yeah, you took this. Okay, you took this. Let's look at the other assets here. Prior to this. Okay, you have a SMT here. Did this end up holding, by the way? I'm just curious. No, it didn't. So we have this little sweep. I think it looks fine, to be honest. What YN? What is it doing? Okay, it's just bullshitting. We already took out that low. Did all the assets take out this low? That would be kind of interesting because on YM, yeah, okay. So on YM, this is a little sus to me. So YM created the SMT at first, as you're seeing. See how it failed to manipulate it, right? This goes back to here. This may be a little advanced, but when an asset creates the initial SMT and it fails to reverse, where is this going to be at? Okay, I can't show too much here. If it fails to reverse here, then generally all the assets will go and take out this high as well. That's kind of what you're seeing here. YM clearly fails to manipulate it, so this is where all the assets go straight into that low, right? But that's a little advanced, so I wouldn't sweat too much on it though. But what I would say though, if you're going to be trading London session, this is the ideal scenario for trading London. This is perfect, by the way, in my opinion, because the daily opens low, so I'm not really mad about the trade. The daily opens low, perfect. If you watch my stream on this, this is exactly how you need to trade London. If it opens low first into a relevant level that was created from the previous day. So if we mark out the previous day's range, this is pretty much it actually, but right, this relevant swing, look at the space between these lows. We ideally want price to reverse from it, right? So whenever price, if all the assets are going to expand into a low like this, you're going to reverse when the basically the strongest asset trades into low. It's the same thing, like as you see right when this asset trades into low, this is when all the other assets trade into low, right? But there's no SMT. This is exactly what you see over here on NQ. Like, y'all remember this trade that I just went over? Do you see how right when NQ traded this low, it reversed, right? It was the strongest one. It's literally the same thing. NQ over there was the strongest. It traded into low the last. Over here, we've been trading into this low, right? Been trading into this low. It's not going to reverse until NQ hits it. You know what I'm saying? So the fact that YM didn't reverse from this low, that means that the S&P is probably going to be fake. But we can still reverse from it. It's not going to reverse until NQ trades into low. And this is some advanced stuff. I'm telling you, like, this shit gets deep. And that's just one of the things. There's a lot of things that we can go over, dude. If you go over here, this trade that I took on gold, or sorry, silver this day, it's the same thing. If gold is going to create this SMT before, see how it clearly fails to manipulate it, right? Where gold actually took out this low yesterday, and there was an SMT here, right? But it's not going to hold if gold's not going to reverse. But we can get a reversal if when silver trades into this low, as you see. This is when we actually get a reaction over here. How do you know it's going to reverse? Is a form of strength switching, right? Where this was the weaker asset, but now what are we doing? We're creating a higher high, which is the trigger for all markets to trade in the same direction. So I actually took this trade, right? And this is a reversal day, right? Very large wick. So how does a daily candle have to form? It has to open low first. So see how it's opening low first, putting it in a London reversal. Then we can target these relevant highs over here, right? There's nothing beyond this. This is just above the daily open, right? So I don't just like make it up. Like that's something you can like really wait for if you see an S&T not gonna hold, But yeah, I don't hate it though. I don't hate it, man. But I will say, if you're gonna trade London, I was getting at that. If you're gonna trade London, and especially on Forex, it's not very, not Forex, on indices, it's not very volatile. So I would be waiting for like an hourly closure, because you need more confirmation. I feel like 30-minute is kind of on the lower time frame. This is when I really use New York. If I have a 30-minute close, there's enough volatility to expand and whatnot. But I would probably use an hourly closure if I was trading London. But I don't hate the trade. I like the idea. Very good idea. That's what matters. That's what truly matters. So that's a good trade. Dude, your approach to the markets is fire. Trying to learn it. Bit of the structured guy. I'm trying to include SMT numbers to your flow chart. Where would you put them? Do you know the date you can cover it? Oh yeah, invalidations was the 26th of last month, I believe. Yeah, 26th of last month, I do believe. So the way I would put it is over here. Hold on. This is kind of like the flow chart, I guess, for drivers. Like you follow this if-then scenario. It's an if-then statement. So if a reversal has been in prior to driver, the driver should expand away, right? And if it doesn't do that, then this is not going to be a reversal. Whatever you thought was a reversal is not a reversal if the driver does not expand away. So that would invalidate your idea. If a reversal is not put in prior to driver, there's always going to be something to reverse off of, right? Then the driver needs to reverse from it. So if I show you some examples of this, like if we haven't even traded into anything relevant to form relevant low high of day, this is kind of an example here, I would say, is if this is not going to be the low of day on YM, right? Because we wouldn't know that, right? We wouldn't know that. But what we can say is, like, if price is going to do this internal to external, then the driver should do what? It should expand away from this gap, right? But if this is going to fail, right, and this is not going to be the low of day, then I want the driver to create a low of day, this is the only relevant area for it to do it, because there's nothing beyond this low, right? It's a relevant low. So I need price to reverse from here, right? So there's always going to be somewhere to reverse from, right? So this is when the driver expands into this low, right? Then we have an SMT here. So you're pairing a driver with the reversal. I even think the next day you do the same thing, right? Even this next day, same shit. There's no high of day prior to driver, right? Then what do I want the driver to do? To go and create it. This is where we see a form of strike switching right here, which I went over in the beginning of the stream. I'll show you some more examples. It's kind of cloudy. All this is kind of cloudy to me, but oh yeah, this is a great one. This is a great one. I traded this as well. And this is a form of strength switching. I'll just show you guys the higher time frame logic here. So if we go to this day particular, this day the 24th, go on ES. We have already taken this high out, forming a divergence. So when we hit a relevant high, the space between these highs are relevant, right? Then we want to see what phase of price do we get, right? And like I said, if it's not going to be reversal, the continuous signature, it's going to be on the more so on the daily, right, closes. So here you see clearly failed to manipulate it. It's more so consolidation, right? This consolidation is really just kind of a slow move up, leaving a bunch of feather swings. So remember, if this SMT is not going to reverse, then that means YM is just going to be lagging behind, and you want to see it trade into this high. And if you want to trade a lagging asset, you want this asset to momentarily switch stronger, right? Because it was weaker. But now if I play this next day, we're creating a divergence, a bullish divergence here. We're over here, we're sweeping at that low, which is a relevant low, right? If I go to the 4-hour chart, see the space between these lows? Right? That's a relevant low. So I want to see SMTs at relevant lows. I want to see price reverse from relevant lows. And when you actually have a reversal, notice how we don't chop around on the higher time frame or anything like that. We just get immediately expansion candles, and that's why on the lower time frame you're going to see the reversal signature for a higher time frame reversal. And so we see here, right, 6 a.m. manipulation. So within this 6 a.m. candle, what do we see? Prior to 9 a.m., right, prior to the driver, do we have a low of day established? No. So I want the driver to go create and trade into this low, right? So this is what it does. It trades into it. Now, it's not going to reverse within the same candle, just because it's trading into the level. So if price trades, let's say the driver trades into a relevant level, but it had to like expand there, it's fine if it doesn't reverse, because again, it hit this low, like probably like late in the 6 a.m. candle. So there's just not enough time, right? So this is when I expect a 10 a.m. reversal, right? It's much different than if maybe prior to the driver, we've already hit a key level, and then maybe the driver fails to expand away. I don't care. I don't give a shit about a 10 a.m. reversal, because that's an invalidation, remember? So I wouldn't be looking for a 10 a.m. reversal, because if the driver fails to reverse, that's a big red flag, right? But here we see a 2-stage SMT at this low. So here's your large time frame SMT. Here's your strength switch. If I go over here, right, there it is. And then I'm just trading this asset here, right? Candle 3, this is what I traded personally. Is this intracandle CSD to get to this high here, which is a fair value gap on the higher time frame, right? So this is the driver. Here's 9:30. It's expanding right to it, and then at 10 o'clock we are expanding away, right? So that's a 10 a.m. reversal there. But yeah, this is how you have to kind of pair it, right? Very, very logical and repeatable. I think I already did. Go for my M trade, I believe. Is it possible to get the access to slides? Yeah, I just don't know where to put it. Do I put it like my channel, I guess? Or I gotta take screenshots and stuff with them. Hey Garrett, if I get it correctly, you don't require 4-hour TT fraction model. No, I don't. Meaning like you can trade this C6. Oh yeah, yes. And the swing still, if it has a small wick. Yes. So like I'll go over one example. I just remember this example. Maybe this one over here, yeah. So within this is a higher time frame expansion. You see that there's literally no swing point here. If you go on the lower time frame though, there is swing points to trade away from. right? So you see this manipulation here. This is something I traded. So you have a relevant, you have a protected low within the expansion on in the dailies, because this is the current day's low. At the time, this was, whoops. At the time, this is the current day's high. So in order to continue again, right, we get this protected swing, and we manipulate prior to the driver. So 8 o'clock already is starting to expand away. So what do we want 9:30 to do? Continue the expansion. What the hell? What was the question? I literally forgot. Oh yeah. So if you look at the 6 a.m. candle though, if mark out the 6 a.m. open, it's opening low into this low, and you can just trade this basically, and then hold runners to the current week's high, which is 1800, which is obviously not established, right? So yeah, you don't need a swing point though. That's irrelevant. We're just trying to align expansion candles. So if you look at this point, the daily has a small wick, the 4-hour candle that you're trading within right here has a small wick, the hourly candle that you're trading within has a small wick. That's the filter, right? That's the whole goal of my model. You said C2 divergence. Do you use that to check for SMT? For instance, if it seems like you draw 2-stage very quickly. Wait, you said C2 divergence. So yeah, it can be a 2-stage. Like I said, there's many forms of it, but if I go to my trade on YM, for example, this is a 2-stage SMT. Right, where we have this SMT here. If I go over here, there's no anything there. So, but what we see here is this is the first divergence. I drop lower though. Here's your second one. If I go in NQ, you see this 11 o'clock low. We take that out while holding this 10 o'clock, where is it? Divergence, right? So that's a 2-stage. I traded ES this day, just a little 2-hour trade. We went a lot further, but it's a reversal day, so I don't really care. But it doesn't have to be a candle 2 though, that's the thing. But I just do it very quickly just because I have experience, I guess. Sound? Oh no. Please hold on, dude. Are we good here? Sound good? Or was it, okay. It was on their end, maybe? I'm a little confused about how you trade strength switching. If primarily NQ is stronger, do you stick? Yeah, so if NQ is a strong, like let's say there's a high time frame SMT, right? I'm still gonna trade this here, even if it momentarily switches to the weaker asset, right? That all that is doing, the momentarily switching to the weaker blah blah blah, is just a trigger for the other assets to also expand in the same direction, because that's all this asset needs. Because if assets are fighting each other, right, they're not going to expand in the same, like they're not going to expand until, you know, further objective, etc. There's a whole, like, it gets deep, because like you might have that strength switch, but if the other assets are not really expanding, and then this asset expands into something relevant, this is how you know we're not going to continue through it, because this asset is not expanding. I'll show you an example of that. I don't even want to like go like too deep into it, because this shit is confusing if you're newer. Like, and I feel like the lens is not how do I say it? It's focusing on more simple approaches, where like mine could be very which is this is not even GXT. This is how you approach certain markets, for example. But this is how I approach filtering through price and stuff, which is extremely confusing, and there's no course on it, so it's very hard. There's only one stream, so it's really hard for me to show everything, because and answer someone else's questions, because I can understand why it's confusing, because I haven't covered everything, you know what I'm saying? But if you look here, for example, you have this SMT here, right? For example, right? But if you look here, if I go into like the 15 minutes or whatever, do you see how this asset is just bullshitting, right? It's more just consolidating, while this one over here is expanding, right? You see that? This is how you know that price is going to have a very hard time displacing through this high, because if the other asset is just bullshitting like this, it's not, you know, there's no market synchronization, so it's gonna have a very hard time displacing through this high. This is why you see it just be choppy, right? So this is where you have to TP here. You can see this happening before it even takes the TP out, and this is how you know you have to TP here, right? But it gets pretty deep in and blah blah blah. It's just like I wouldn't even worry about it too much. Um, we'll go into that in depth later though. Like we'll have part twos and on that string switching stuff, but it gets very nuanced. I'm telling you. But when you learn it, there's nothing better. I promise you. Um, relative swing can define it. What do you do when a new higher time frame 1 hour candle opens and the first lower time frame 5 minute candle that prints closes into a POI? Example 10 a.m. 1 hour opens, 10:05 prints into a POI. You still consider that as a valid high or low for that higher time frame candle when looking to trade away from it? I don't understand this question, I think. When do you wait? What do you do when a higher time frame 1 hour candle opens up? Okay. In the first lower time frame 5 minutes candle that prints closes into a POI. Wouldn't that be good? Like, am I picturing this wrong? Like, here's the open. The first 5 minutes trade into a POI? I'm confused. Valid high or low? Yeah, I would though. If it did this first 5 minutes and did that, I would still consider it, even if the low of the candle is formed very early on, like the first 5 minutes. I think that's what you're asking, maybe. Yeah, I would still consider that as valid. Is that what you're asking me? I'm not really sure. Sound? Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. Never mind. uh, bet. Yeah, you can still trust it though. Why when no crazy ass replay all over your screen? Oh, this is a setting. Yeah, I had that happen to me before. You have to go to like settings and somewhere in like fucking hell, dude. It's somewhere in here, bro. Replay. Hold on. Trading? No. Wait, is it trading? No. Canvas? It's somewhere in here, bro. Someone can help you. That's just annoying. Uh, where is it, man? Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I kind of forgot, but somewhere in here, bro. It gotta be trading. Like some replay shit. What? I don't know, dude. It's somewhere in the settings, though. I had to turn it off. It was quite annoying. Hi, Garrett. Miss my cue. Could you talk about invalidation the way that you know you are wrong in the direction and close before stop loss gets hit? Um, so I gotta end the stream here because we're at an hour, but I'll just continue. So let me just end this recording here.